Anong take mo sa impeachment ni Vice President Sara? What do you think is the game plan of the administration? You were once a member of the cabinet. May game plan yan eh. Anong game plan ng administrasyon?
Well, ang game plan nila ay gusto nilang makonvict si Inday Sara before June 30 para magkaroon ng bagong vice presidente.
Before June 30? Eh, di ba malapit na yun? Kaya ba? May oras ba?
Kaya nga pinupirsa nila na dapat magkaroon na ng impeachment court ang Senado. Mag-convene into an impeachment court. At apurahin nila yan before June 30, magkaroon ng judgment of conviction para mapalitan ang vice presidente. At kung sino man ang ilagay nila dyan ay may lamang kung election sa 2028. At iyon ang hindi natin basta-basta papayagan. Kasi nga, ito ang dahilan kung bakit nabuwag yung unit team. Ang mga Duterte kasi, ang sumusuporta mga ordinaryong tao, masang Pilipino. Sila sumuporta sa kanya noong 2016. At iyon ang sumusuporta kay VP Inday Sara rin. Sila rin ang nagluklok sa kanya vice presidente. Pero ang sumusuporta dito sa Pangulo, ay ito yung mga oligarchs. Alam naman natin yun. Sila ay mayayaman. Na sila yung dating hindi sila makaporma ng todo-todo kay Pangulong Digong. Ayaw nilang sitwasyon.
So ang framing mo para siyang away ng elitista at masa.
Exactly. Exactly. Yun ang totoo niyan. Away ito ng elitista at ang masang Pilipino. Dahil pag nakabalik si Vice President Sara Duterte, ipagpapatuloy niya yung programa ng kanyang tatay.
In light of the Francisco ruling?
Under the expanded jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court can take jurisdiction in actual cases, actual controversy that involves the rights, demandable rights of people, and when there is abuse of or grave abuse of discretion. So, for as long as the question is not political, but there is abuse of discretion, grave abuse of discretion on the part of the respondent, and or there's an actual controversy that involves demandable rights, the Supreme Court can step in. Thank you.
In other words, the decision of the impeachment court can be appealed to the Supreme Court?
Why? Are you sure there was abuse of discretion?
Yes. Good morning mga kasama. Nandito na naman si Kuya Goods nagbabalik. At syempre, kung hindi ka pa nakasubscribe sa ating channel, pa-subscribe na lang po at hit mo na rin yung bell para lagi kang updated sa ating mga video. Mga sinisipon tayo mga kasama. O eto, nakarma na ba? Sino? O si Barbie. Nakarma ka na ba, Barbie? Oo, yan ang mga usap-usapan ngayon. At pahayag ni Senador Raul Lambino, meron siyang interview dito sa isang anchor, no? Hindi ko nababanggitin kayo na home. Bahala nga pumusga kung sino ito eh. At Korte Suprema, pinapasumite yung original na kopya ng national budget. Naku po, ito na nakakabistuhan na. Baka meron ng ma-impeach dito. Magkabaligtara na. Baka imbis na kayo magpa-impeach kay BP Sara, kayo matanggal sa pwesto. Ilang kayo. Dapat dito yung mga nagsipirma. Yan ay, bigyan ng sanksyon. Yung nag-insertion di umano, impeach. Impeachable, di ba yung bakulaw at saka yung namumuno? Hindi pala pwede yung namumuno. Ano bang pwede ron? Yun ang tanong natin sa ating mga kababayan. Pero bago natin simulan natin talakayan at reaksyon, saan like and share, samahan mo na subscribe at bell all mo para nakakatanggap ka ng notification. At i-share nyo mga kasama. Pagpasok pa lang ng video natin, i-like nyo na para yung algorithm natin medyo maganda. Ngayon ho, imbis na marami tayong kababayan makakapanood nito, hindi natin alam kung anong nangyari. Pero ito na, ipasok na natin Nakarma na. Sino? Nakarma na ba talaga o makakarma pa lang? Ito ang alamin natin sa kwento ni Robin Hood.
Ang malalagay sa alanganin si Ace Barbers dahil sa kanyang pagtawag na narko at pogo vloggers.
Nako po,
ang mga DDS vloggers na naimbitahan sa kanilang pahiring. Tila nga maharap sa 1 billion pesos class lawsuit ng defamation itong si Ace Barbers. Ayon sa post ng isang kilalang Facebook page. From Flat Chick, could Representative Ace Barbers face a 1 billion pesos class lawsuit for defamation for a repeated mention in all his live interviews with the media, including ambush interviews, Representative Ace Barbers alluding that the 37 invited online opinion writers are narco and pogo bloggers without an iota of proof, had already committed libel and slander, known broadly as defamation, wherein his statements about the 37 online opinion writers are unfounded, resulting to harming their reputation. Barbers made those sweeping statements that the vloggers have received payments from Narco and Pogo.
Yan kasi ang hirap. Hindi inaalam ang totoo. May masabi lang. Paano ngayon yan? Sino-sino ang magkakaso dito? May mga nababanggit na rito. Paano kung lahat yung mga nagkaroon ng show cause order magsampa at maghain? Sa bagay, pwede at hinain, eto na nga. Ano ikakaso? Defamation. Could represented barbers face a billion pesos class lawsuit for defamation. Pag ito ho ay hindi napatunayan na yung sinabi, lalo na may video, na itong mga Duterte vlogger ay tumatanggap ng pera mula sa Pogo, ito ay mga narco, ayon sa video, nako po, ito na. Ilan ho yung vlogger na pinatawag na yun? Kung magdemanda yon at maghain, ang daming kaso. May libel, slander, defamation. Nako po. Baka maubos ang kaperahan pag yun na napatunayan. Ubos talaga. Dapat po, boss, inalam nyo muna. Nagtanong-tanong muna kayo. Huwag ho kayo magsasalita na wala kayong katibayan kasi wala naman ho talaga nagbabayad dyan. Ang nagbabayad dyan, ang taong bayan dahil sa ads. Nanonood ho sila, yun po ang katunayan. Pero wag na natin ipasok yung bayad-bayad na yan. Ito na lang pag-usapan dito kung ang problema pa naman dito. Tapos na ang termino nito. Wala pang tinatakbuhang posisyon. Ngayon, pag nagdemanda, tuloy-tuloy ang demanda ng mga vlogger na yan, tuloy natin to.
And that someone higher than all of them is commanding their concerted moves. All these false statements about the subjects already hurt and damaged their reputation. Under the law, both are grounds for a criminal and civil lawsuits.
Nako, yan.
In his desperation to get their appearance at a TRICOM hearing, Ace Barbers has made repeated sweeping statements hoping to get back at them for allegedly calling him the RUG Lord, when none of the said vloggers really called him as such. If there ever is, he could have filed charges against them instead. Technically, all the 37 online opinion writers can sue and file a class suit against Barbers because their reputation were heavily damaged due to Barbers' libelous statement, resulting in financial loss suffered as a result of their loss of reputation. These 37 opinion writers are not even bloggers because they are doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, journalists, and creative professionals. Tarnishing their person's reputation may result in them diminishing their ability to work or get potential work opportunities due to damage to their reputation as a result of the slanderous statements made by Ace Barbers. Depriving them of work opportunities, they could request for financial damages as well. This is what we had been harping to your representative Barbers, Dan Fernandez, Stephen Paduano, Benny Abante, and all TRICOM panelists.
Nako.
The most you could do is terminate your TRICOM hearing and stop threatening resource persons and simply just work with your invited speakers or resource persons, so you can amicably create new legislations using their experience as resource information.
Ito dapat ang pag-usapan nyo dyan, hindi yung mga vloggers. Ang dapat pag-usapan nyo dyan, yung controversial na vice cam. Yun ang dapat ang bigyan nyo ng pansin, tutukan nyo. Dahil may ebidensya na, niwawalang bahala nyo pa. Sabi ni Aling Lourdes dito. Diba? May insertion na, nagtatanga-tangahan pa raw, sabi ni Aling Marie. Ano ang gagawin? Sabi nila, yan pantakip doon sa Oo, yung impeachment ang nakatutok sila pantakip doon sa vice cam. Kaya doon sila nakatutok sa mga vlogger at sa mga Duterte at sa impeachment para yung vice cam ay mawala na. Hindi ho pwede. Ang sagot niya ni Atty. Lambino dito. Tignan natin ang kanyang pahayag. Sino ba ang pangit mamuno? Lambino since Uniteam breakup. BP impeachment connected to 2028 presidential election. Tama nga naman. Ito yung title nila. Tignan natin kung ano yung mga bahagi ng usapin dito.
Sa iyong palagay, may mali ba sa pamamahala ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos sa ngayon? Kung meron man, at ano ito?
Ang mali po dyan ay binuwag nila kaagad yung Uniteam.
Yeah.
No? Kung bakit nila ginawa yan, hindi ko alam. Siguro merong nagsasabi na dahil yung 2028 tinitingnan na nila kung ano mangyayari. So nauna ang politika kesa sa kapakanan ng sambayan ng Pilipino. Yun ang nakita ko dyan. Pinabayaan ni Pangulong Bongbong na ganito ang sitwasyon na mangyayari. Nabuwag kaagad yung naumpisang Uniteam. Ang ganda-ganda ng Uniteam. Pati ako naniwala. Talaga naman pong kinampanya natin yung dalawa na yun. Umikot tayo sa buong Pilipinas, sa buong Northern Luzon. Sinabi natin na ganito, supportan natin itong Uniteam.
Ang sabi nila ng iba, kayo din daw may kasalanan. Kayo ang nag-endorse. Ayan tuloy, nanalo.
Hindi natin aasahan na ganito parang nangyari. At yun nga ang kalunos-lunos dyan. Nawala yung ating sinasabi na pag-asa na pagkaroon ng bagong Pilipinas. Hindi bagong Pilipinas ang nangyari.
Akala ko sasabihin mo, ang bigas wala pa rin 20 pesos. Ang taas pa rin ng presyo ng bilihin. Akala ko yun ang sasabihin mo.
Sobra naman talagang taas ng bilihin ngayon. Yun ang isang problema natin ngayon. Anong gagawin natin? Hindi lang bigas. Lahat ng mga bilihin na pangangailangan ng ordinaryong mamayang Pilipino, hindi na nila kayang bumili. At marami ang nagugutom ng mga pamilyang Pilipino.
Politika ulit. Ano ang take mo sa impeachment ni Vice President Sara? What do you think is the game plan of the administration? You were once a member of the cabinet. May game plan yan eh. Anong game plan ng administrasyon?
Well, ang game plan nila ay gusto nilang makonvict si Inday Sara before June 30 para magkaroon ng bagong vice presidente.
Before June 30? Di ba malapit na yun? Kaya ba? May oras ba?
Kaya nga pinupwersa nila na dapat magkaroon na ng impeachment court ang Senado. Mag-convene into an impeachment court. At apurahin nila yan before June 30, magkaroon ng judgment of conviction para mapalitan ang vice presidente. At kung sino man ang ilagay nila dyan ay may lamang kung election sa 2028. At iyon ang hindi natin basta-basta papayagan. Kasi nga, ito ang dahilan kung bakit nabuwag yung Uniteam. Ang mga Duterte kasi, ang sumusuporta mga ordinaryong tao, masang Pilipino. Sila sumuporta sa kanya noong 2016. At iyon ang sumusuporta kay VP Inday Sara rin. Sila rin ang nagluklok sa kanya vice presidente. Pero ang sumusuporta dito sa Pangulo, ay ito yung mga oligarchs. Alam naman natin yun. Sila ay mayayaman. Na sila yung dating hindi sila makaporma ng todo-todo kay Pangulong Digong. Ayaw nilang sitwasyon.
So ang framing mo para siyang away ng elitista at masa.
Exactly. Exactly. Yun ang totoo niyan. Away ito ng elitista at ang masang Pilipino. Dahil pag nakabalik si Vice President Sara Duterte, ipagpapatuloy niya yung programa ng kanyang tatay na kailangan unahin natin ang mga maralitang Pilipino at mga overseas Filipino workers.
Paano yung issue ng accountability? Naalala mo, nag-ugat yung issue, hindi niya may paliwanag yung confidential fund. Siyempre may ibang tao, hindi paliwanag mo kasi pera ng tao bayan yan.
Ang daming gumastos ng intelligence and confidential funds. Yung confidential funds hindi lamang sa Vice President yan. Mas malaki yung confidential fund ng Pangulo. Iyan din ang dahilan kung bakit dinimanda nila noon si Pangulong Gloria Macapagal-Arroyo dahil sa confidential fund At ako yung abogado doon. At alam mo, yung confidential fund, talagang certification lamang yan ng Commission on Audit. At wala ka nang dapat na sabihin doon. Wala pang yung tinatawag na notice of disallowance or what, AOM pa lang yun Audit Observation Memorandum pa lang ng COA yun. Makukumpleto yun. Pero pinalaki nila lang pinalaki. Marami akong kakilala ng mga government agencies na gumagamit ng confidential funds. Ano ang kanilang ginagawa? Ganun lamang. Pirma lamang yan. Tapos, hindi yan binubuksan. Hindi na nila tinatanong kung sino ang binigyan mo yan.
So, ang depensa mo is parang tinarget siya.
Tinarget talaga siya. Dahil pinasama pinasama sa publiko na, may pera pala siyang tinanggap. Bakit hindi niya ma-account? Sino bang gumastos niya? Paano niya ginastos?
Pero talaga namang may perang
Talaga meron silang natanggap kasi 150 million. Naamin naman nila. Binigay sa kanila yon at ginastos nila yung paliwanag nila. Pero ito, nagtataka ako. Doon sa hearing sa Senado, binanggit doon na yung dalawang opisyal ng militar na kasama ni VP na sila tumanggap. Bakit hindi sila pinatawag at sabihin kung paano nila ginastos? Sabi nila, hindi na kailangan patawagin kasi meron namang internal process ang Armed Forces of the Philippines.
Okay. Sige.
So, yun yung mga issue.
Usad tayo. Wais ba na i-legislate yung dagdag sahod? Yan, naging uso yan. Gusto nila i-legislate o dapat wage board lang yan? Although, popular na topic, matutuwa si mga manggagawa.
Alam mo yung regional wage boards, ang tagal-tagal na yan. Lagi kong sinasabi na...
So, ito usapin ng pagtaas ng sahod na yan. Dito tayo mapunta. Alamin natin dito kung talaga bang ibibigay yung kopya ng enroll bill at saka yung BICAM. Tignan natin sa balita na ito. Sana makuha ng ombudsman para magkaalaman na. Diba? Meron pa nga silang pasaring eh. Ginagamit daw ng Duterte ang ombudsman para siraan yung mga nagsipirma. Wow! Kayong mga gumagawa ng kaloko sa mga Duterte eh. Tapos ngayon, ibabato nyo sa mga Duterte ngayon yung kalokohan nyo. Iba na lang, wag nyo lokohin ang mga tao. Sa unggoy kayo magkwento, baka maniwala pa sa inyo. Eto, tutukan natin to. Anong usapin dito?
Sa Malacanang at sa Kongreso ang kopya ng 2025 National Budget at ang orihinal na bersyon ng mga panukalang ito. Kasunod po yan ang mga alegasyon ng irregularidad sa pagpasa ng pambansang pondo. Nagbabalik si Manan Enriquez.
Ipinag-utos ng Korte Suprema sa Malacanang, Senado at Kamara na isumite ang orihinal na kopya ng 2025 General Appropriations Act at maging ang mga bersyon ng panukala nito. Binigyan ng tatlo ng hanggang February 24 para isumite ang mga dokumento. Para yan sa gagawing preliminary conference sa February 20.
Take note mga kasama ha, tandaan nyo, February 24, para submit nila ang last day ha. Korte Suprema pinasusumite ang kopya ng 2025 GAA. I-submit nyo yan para magkaalaman kung ano talaga nangyari dito sa budget. At ngayon nga yung budget umuusad na eh. Dapat yan, naka-freeze pa yan eh. Pero nagagawan pa ng paraan, sabi ni Aling Marie, di umano.
28. Inihain ng mga kaalyado ni dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte na sina dating Executive Secretary Vic Rodriguez at Davao City Representative Isidro Ungab ang petisyon sa SC. Paniwala nila may unconstitutional irregularities sa pagpapasa ng 2025 budget. Gaya ng pagbibigay ng zero subsidy sa PhilHealth, iligal na pagdadagdag ng pondo kahit walang rekomendasyon ng Pangulo at paglobo ng budget ng DPWH. Kinuwestiyon din sa korte ang umano'y mga blankong probisyon sa bicameral report ng budget pero nanindigan ang mga miyembro ng Bicameral Conference Committee na walang irregularidad sa budget. Isusumiti naman daw ng Kamara ang mga hinihinging kopya ng SC.
Mas maganda rin talagang para po ng ating mga justices ng Korte Suprema, sila mismo makakapagsabi na wala akong blanco dyan.
In fact, we welcome this initiative on the part.
Ang tanga-tanga talaga ng sila daw makapagsabi na walang blanco. Ibigay nyo yung kopya ng BICAM tsaka yung gaan na yan. Para malaman talaga kung ano talaga ang totoo. Oo, sabi ni Jose, ang tanga-tanga naman daw talaga ni. Ay naku po, Diyos mio. Pag kayo magsasalita, baka mamaya niyan, lumabas ang katotohanan, mabokya kayo. Dapat, hindi ganon. Oo, aminin nyo na. Sabi ni Aling Rosemary, aminin nyo na talaga ang totoo. Diba? 2025 Gaza, trans-illegal at kriminal yan ang kaso. Sabi ni Aling Josepina. Magiging kaso yan dahil yan ay pandodorobo. Magaling to si Aling Regina. Tuloy.
Of the Supreme Court to really require the copy of the enrolled bill. Kasi at least for now, we can establish the enrolled bill doctrine, which is well respected among in jurisprudence na maging basehan talaga kung ano nakasulat sa enrolled bill.
Halata na
yung BICAM report, meron ng kopya sila Congressman Ungab, sila Kong Alvarez, meron akong kopya yan. Ngayon, yung enrolled bill na lang, yung napirmahan. Kasi pag pinagtali yan doon, titignan yan kung ilan yung magkakaalaman. Hindi natin alam, baka ngayon minamanipula na. Ilang araw pa, February 2024, February 24. Malapit na. Ano na ngayon? 22, 2 araw na lang. Sana ilabas. At mapatunayan na kung sino talaga yung nagdoktor o nag-fill in the blank. Ang usapin dito, BICAM, wag niyong pag-impeach si BP Sara. Pinagugulo niyo na naman ang usapin. Gusto niyang tabunan yung issue. Hindi niya matatabunan yan. Ito yung usapin. At ito rin yung magiging hakbang ng mga kongresista na nakasilip niyan para ma-impeach kung sino yung bakulaw. At pwedeng makasuhan pagdating ng panahon yung kung sino yung mga gumawa nito. Ayan ang sabi ni Aling Josepina.
Naman daw nililihis lang ng reklamong ito ang issue para mapanagot si Vice President Sara Duterte na nahaharap sa impeachment.
Nililihis lang mo tayo sa issue na nakatuon dapat doon sa pag-exact ng accountability sa pangalawang Pangulo, lalong-lalo na sa impeachment.
Itinakda
Ewan ko sa inyo. Oo, lahat ng mga propaganda nyo, hindi na ba mabibenta sa ating mga kababayan? Oo, lusaw lahat kasi alam na kasi yung mga bangon nyo. Hindi na kayo uusad. Kaya yung mga pagpapanggap nyo, huwag nyo na lang... nagtataka nga kami sa inyo, bakit kayo ini-interview ng mga stream na yan eh. Oo. Dahil wala namang sustansya lahat ng mga... Anak ng bugi talaga. Tuloy.
ng SC ang oral arguments kaugnay ng legalidad ng 2025 national budget sa April 1 sa Baguio. Nagbabalita mula.
Puntahan natin dito. Yung mga supporter ni BP Sara ay nagsimula na rin. Sa Mindanao. Naku po, ito na yung mga nag-comment sa atin, taga Mindanao. At meron hong balita, mamaya-maya bibigay natin yung slide. Mga aktibidad sa gaganaping EDSA Revolution. Naku po, ito EDSA Revolution ang pag-uusap dito ha. Balita ito. Ano kaya ang magaganap dito sa petsang ito? Abangan natin yan. Baka mamaya magulat tayo. Kasi sila nang bahala magkwento sa inyo mamaya-maya.
Nagtipon-tipon ng mga taga-suporta ni Inday Sara Duterte sa Freedom Park, Davao City upang
pala,
ipahayag ang kanilang paninindigan laban sa panawagang impeachment at ipagtanggol ang Vice Presidente na si Inday Sara Duterte. Ang detalye mula kay Jean Domingo.
Sa Freedom Park, Davao City, umalingaw-ngaw ang sigaw ng pagkakaisa habang nagtipon ang mga taga-suporta ni Vice President Inday Sara Duterte. Ayon sa mga organizers, ang rally na ito ay isang mapayapang pagkilos na naglalayong ipakita ang suporta at pagmamahal ng mga botante kay VP Inday Sara Duterte. Ayon sa mga ito, ang pagtitipon na ito ay hindi lamang laban sa mga isyong politikal, kundi para rin sa katarungan kung saan ipinapakita na ang boto ng bawat Pilipino ay hindi lamang simbolo ng pag-asa, kundi tunay na paninindigan.
Marami po tayo, ma'am. They are coming from different organizations. May Maisog, may Riders Club, may Guardians, may fraternity groups, may mga senior citizens, may mga retired police po tayo, may mga retired teachers, retired nurses, mga OFW, no? Mga seaman. Nandito sila lahat, mga bangsamoro, nating kapatid, mga alim, mga ustads, mga sultan, nandito sila lahat para po publicly papakita nilang kanilang saloobin na hindi sila natutuwa sa mga pangyayari sa ngayon.
Panawagan sa lahat ng mga taga Davao, lalo-lalo sa mga bangsamoro at sa mga ulamas, mga ustada, kasi nandito tayo sa Freedom Park upang ipagtanggol natin ang mabait na Vice Presidente na si Inday Sara Duterte.
Nakalay ng ganda nila at sa kanyang lumi at ganda.
Sabay-sabay na nagdala ang mga dumalo ng mga kandila sa pagtitipon na ayon sa kanila isang simbolo ng liwanag sa gitna ng dilim ng mga hamon sa politika. Sa kanyang pagkilos, mariin nilang ipinahayag na hindi mawawala ang kanyang tiwala sa liderato ni VP Inday Sara Duterte.
Naka-indignation rally kami diri tungod sa katong ninggawas nga gidali-dali nila nga impeachment complaint nga giduso nila sa Senado which kabalumi nga di gyapon na mo prosper nganuman kay walay unod ang gipasa nila nga impeachment. Ginadimulis gyud nila ang integridad ni VP Sara tungod sa si VP Sara nagsiserbisyo og wala siya giingon nga sa pang-eleksyon kundi ang yang katungdanan nga usa ka gipili sa katawhan nga sulugoon nga Vice Presidente mao na iyang ginabuhat.
Nandito kami dahil po sa ipapakita namin yung pagprotekta sa ating Vice Presidente. Alam naman natin lahat ang pangyayari no sa Kongreso. Gumawa sila ng gawain para idiin ang ating Vice Presidente sa pangitan po ng pag-file nila ng impeachment laban sa ating Vice Presidente sa Pilipinas. So bilang mga totoo at mga supporters ni VP Sara Duterte, hindi kami nasisihan at pinapakita namin ngayong lahat na ayaw namin sa ginawa ng Kongreso na pumirma sila doon laban sa impeachment sa ating Vice Presidente ng Pilipinas.
Ilan sa mga lumahok ang nagbahagi ng kanilang personal na dahilan kung bakit sila naniniwala sa kakayahan ni Inday Sara. At ang naganap na indignation rally at candle lighting ay malinaw na nagpapakita ng determinasyon ng mga Pilipino na ipaglaban ang kanilang pananaw laban sa mga banta ng impeachment. Ang mga supporters na dumalo ay mga key leaders mula sa iba't ibang panig ng Mindanao.
Ayan ha. Ang dami ha, mga kapatid na Muslim, iba't ibang mga grupo, yan ho ang makikita natin. Samantala, ano yung meron dito? Maganda pag-usapan natin to. Malaman nyo kung makakadalo kayo dito sa sa February 25. Ano yung aktibidad dyan? Dadalo ba kayo? Hindi natin alam kung ano para sa itong aktibidad dito. Pero may mababanggit dito isang anibersaryo ng EDSA Shrine. Ano ba ito? Nako po, alam nyo naman ito. Ito yung laban kung sino yung namumuno noon na talagang galit na galit ang tao. Hindi ko lang alam ngayon kung talagang ganun pa rin ang stand nito ha. Kung galit ba sila talaga o talagang nagkaroon na ng collaboration. Sabi ni Marites. Alam niyo naman si Marites. Tuloy natin to.
Working holiday ang pagunita sa EDSA People Power Revolution sa February 25. Pero kahit may pasok, ilang universidad ang nagsuspindi ng mga klase. May bagong inisyatibo rin ng mga church at civic groups. Ang detalye sa agenda report ni Francis Volve.
May pasok pero deklaradong alternative learning day sa ilang universidad ang Martes, February 25, ika-39 na anibersaryo ng EDSA People Power Revolution. Kabilang ang Assumption College, San Lorenzo, Ateneo de Manila University, Far Eastern University, Miriam College at UP campuses, maliban sa UP Cebu na nagsuspindi na ng pasok para makibahagi sa mga aktibidad. Ganon din ang ilang kilalang Catholic universities gaya ng University of Santo Tomas, De La Salle University, Adamson University, La Consolacion College, Pobeda, UST Angelicum at Xavier School. Nagsanib puwersa naman ang ilang civil society at church groups na tinawag nilang Clergy and Citizens for Good Governance. Isinusulong nila ang ilang mga agenda para sa EDSA at 39. Hindi sila sang-ayon sa pagdeklara ng Malacanang na Special Working Day ang February 25. Parte raw ito ng tinatawag na revisionism ng Administrasyong Marcos.
Kagaya rin ng pangarap ng mga Somalis noong EDSA People Power 1, gusto natin ng mas mapagkalinga, mas maunlad, mas mapayapang Pilipinas para sa lahat ng Pilipino. Kasi iyon ang nagkulang. Aminin man natin hindi. Lahat ng gobyerno pagkatapos ng EDSA People Power 1 nagkulang sa pag-aangat ng kabuhayan ng ating mga kababayan. We have to acknowledge that para makita ng taong bayan na gusto nating baguhin na talaga ang sistema.
Masalimuot na proseso po yung pagkakaisa at saka yung mga grupo na nagtitipon-tipon dito ngayon baka hindi nagkakasundo sa ilang mga mahalagang bagay kagaya po ng ating pagsusuri sa nakaraang mga administrasyon. Pero ang pinag-usapan po ngayon ay yung buhay, yung kahalagahan ng buhay ng kahit sinong mamamayan. At yung kinakalaban po natin ay yung mga nagbabanta ng pagpaslang at karahasan kapag yung pinag-usapan po ay yung pera. Mali yung paglalaban pala nito. Iba yung tinutumbok nito. Sorry i-replay ko. Gagawin pala nila ito. Akala natin gagawin nila ito doon, kagaya ng ginawa nila doon sa yung lolo at alam nyo na, yung namuno noon at yung mga nag-aklas. Iba pala ang gusto nito. Wag ho kayong sasama. Iba. Ulitin ko ha, para marinig nyo ha. Kalaban po natin ay yung mga nagbabanta ng pagpaslang at karahasan kapag yung pinag-usapan po ay yung pera ng bayan at tuwing nilulustay ito at kinukurakot ito.
Tuloy din daw ang mga aktibidad para sariwain at ipasa sa mga susunod na henerasyon ang mga aral ng EDSA. Bukas ng umaga sa EDSA Shrine. May Pan Pinoy Games naman sa Rizal Park.
Hi. Okay. Maliwanag ha. Iba yung ano rito. Iba yung gaganapin dito. Patungkol ito na naman kay BP Sara. Bakit hindi tinumbok kung sino yung may usapin sa vice cam? May usapin sa mga pandudurobo ng bayan. Bakit yun ang hindi tinumbok dito? Ayan ang tanong. Eto, nasupalpal ito si Mr. Tulog. Sino yung sumupalpal? Alamin natin dito. Kilala niyo ba si Mr. Tulog? Nasupalpal siya dito Matindi yung pagkapahiya ni Mr. Tulog dito sa kayo na ho ang humusga ha. Bigyan natin ng magandang slide to.
the removal and also evades the disqualification, while impeachment really is the constitutional last resort for as far as these officials are concerned. The offenses are so grave as to merit impeachment as a way of removing them, and therefore we cannot just simply say by rendering it moot by resignation, even the aspect of whether this person could ever be allowed to hold public office would simply be swept away. So I would support that consensus, but would want to point it out that because of the consequence of just using mootness, we really should disabuse, right, the public of that particular consequence. That it is simply an accessory to removal. It is not. These are two separate and distinct consequences.
The principal consequence of that. If we can move on to the fourth question, just because for the lawyers here, is there a standard of evidence in impeachment trials, or should there be? And the reason why I ask is that in 2012, during the Corona impeachment, one of the key issues raised by then Senator Santiago, Defensor Santiago, was what would be the standard of evidence. Now, for non-lawyers, the standard of evidence is basically how much proof should there be before a particular judgment is given by a court, and in this case, the Senate. Is that question at all relevant? Does it risk the over-legalization of impeachment, and what would be the consequences of that? Commissioner Sarmiento, and then probably Professor Te and Senate President Drilon.
If I recall right, it was an issue during the impeachment of President Estrada. And again, an issue during the impeachment of Chief Justice Corona. What is the quantum of evidence? Should it be proof beyond reasonable doubt or sufficient evidence? Again, to the best of my recollection, it was not proof beyond reasonable doubt, which is very difficult. I think it was sufficient evidence would be enough as guide for the senators in, well, convicting or acquitting the respondent.
Well, I don't think proof beyond reasonable doubt is a standard. That's only for crimes, I think during the impeachment of Corona, what was actually followed was the overwhelming preponderance of evidence. Preponderance of evidence, in one case, it has been said that it's more than 50% chance of getting the desired result. So, again, it's because it's the Senate which is given the sole power to come up with its rules. Then we respect whatever burden of proof the Senate will exact from the parties, but certainly not proof beyond reasonable doubt. Thank you.
Senate President Drilon.
Remember that the senator judges are not lawyers. Many, some are lawyers, some are not. But having said that, there is simply no standard of evidence that is required. Each senator judge would make a judgment on the basis of his or her appreciation. There is no standard that is imposed because it's simply not possible to impose that kind of standard. Because in the first place, we say that the impeachment court is a class of its own. So, from that alone, you can have many consequences. And it's difficult, really difficult to impose any standard because the members of the court are simply politicians in the first place. They are not lawyers in every instance. So it is addressed to their conscience how they would perceive the evidence presented.
Thank you, Senate President Drilon. For Prof. Gwen and Prof. Ted, I wonder if you can tie this question to questioning the question, the larger issue about the way that law and politics interacts in impeachment, because it does look like and feel like a legal proceeding. We call the senator judges, there's a prosecution team, there's a defense team, but in the final analysis, it seems like a lot of the rules that we would apply to courts actually do not apply to the Senate. And what would that mean for questions like evidence or burden of proof?
Okay. Thanks for that question. The first thing that I'd like to say is that the very first rule under the rules of court regarding evidence is that it applies only for judicial proceedings. So when we talk about evidence, unless the Senate expressly adopts the rules on evidence, which I do not think it should, because as Senate President Drilon pointed out, they are not all lawyers. So, the complicated, technical, nuanced appreciation of evidence may not work for all of the senators who are not lawyers. They are not trained in those rules, and therefore it shouldn't bind them technically. Secondly, because of the political nature of impeachment, I think the standard, and I wouldn't say standard of evidence, the standard, I think, from which any evidence is appreciated by the senators should be, what would I, as a senator, need to be convinced of to remove this elected official from office and bar this official from ever being able to assume office. Whatever that standard is, that should be how the senator views the evidence. Because again, you can't use preponderance, you can't use reasonable doubt, you can't use substantial evidence, which is so low a bar in terms of administrative proceedings. And because it's sui generis, as SP Drilon points out, I think the point of view of the senator should be, hearing everything that I've heard, does it convince me, does it answer this question for me, that this impeached official should then be removed from office and should be barred from ever assuming office? And that's a very heavy burden. That's a very difficult question, because again, you're contending with an elected official who has been put into office by the will of the people, and your vote as a senator is essentially to override that decision of the people, right? In putting that person in office for whatever offenses this person has done, and that has been proven. So I do not think the standard should be the legal standard that we lawyers are used to. I'm trying to recall who it was who said, I think it was Senator Lapid in the Corona impeachment. His explanation of vote was so simple, from the point of view of an ordinary person. You may agree or disagree with his explanation of vote, but that was how he perceived the issue. And so I think from the point of view of the senators, when they're viewing the evidence, they should be viewing it with the end in mind of answering that question. What would convince me that this person should be removed from office, overriding the vote that this person got, and perpetually barring this person from ever holding any office? Those are two very difficult questions to answer. And maybe just as a third point, Paolo, in relation to the use of evidence, over judicializing the proceedings, right, may also get in the way of impeachment as a mode of truth telling, of finding out the truth regarding certain transactions, certain grounds. Because again, the litigators know that one way to get a judgment in your favor is to make sure that the evidence never gets in. So hearsay objections, all of those things, right? But if for example the Senate takes on a very an overly judicial approach towards receiving evidence, right, and therefore there's hearsay objections all around, essentially you don't get to hear what's behind the accusations, right? And so maybe a shift in the mode, right, of adversarial, which we're used to in court, right? People versus X and Y, A versus B, from adversarial to inquisitorial, where the Senate, acting as inquisitors, right, basically try to find out, is this true? And even if it would be hearsay, right, as long as it is supported by enough corroboration, perhaps the Senate can go beyond that. I say that because of the qualification that the rules of evidence are really for judicial proceedings. They're not really for other types of proceedings.
But the rules of evidence is supplementary to the rules of the impeachment court.
Yes.
And if let's say an objection is raised on that the evidence is hearsay, that can be ruled by non-lawyers. Yeah. That can be decided by non-lawyers, because that is put to a vote in the impeachment court. So in that sense, the rules of evidence has a supplementary application.
I agree, sir. But what I'm simply, I think, pointing out is that we should not overly judicialize the proceedings, because I think the other function of impeachment, the trial itself, which sometimes gets overlooked because of the adversarial nature, the perspective that it is adversarial, is the fact-finding, the truth-telling aspect of the impeachment court.
Scholars would actually call it not so much legal accountability, but political accountability.
Yes, political accountability.
And hence the morally coded words of the Constitution on impeachment. Prof. Gwen, before we probably go to the last question.
Maybe just 2 quick points. To the question, I agree with Senate President Drilon. the Constitution does not itself require any standard of proof nor any quantum of proof in the impeachment trial. And from a practical perspective, I think it will be difficult to impose such a standard because the determination of whether the impeached official's conduct rises to the level of an impeachable offense is addressed to each senator judge. Because at the end of the day, the conviction or the acquittal in an impeachment trial is just a matter of votes. So we look at, so that question is really addressed to each senator judge. And as Senate President Didon mentioned, not all of them are lawyers. The second point is, while we're discussing burden of proof, I think there are two important sort of strands to that question that the Senate should pay attention to. One is their crafting of their rules for the impeachment trial. In the past, I understand that they have adopted the rules of evidence in a suppletory manner. We don't know whether that has affected in any way the capability of a non-lawyer senator judge in receiving information. That's one. The second is if it has affected the capability of parties, for example, the House managers or the House prosecution panel and the defense in terms of presenting information to the Senate for purposes of each judge making that decision. Lastly, also the role of the presiding judge. So in the last two impeachment trials, both were lawyers. So Chief Justice Davide and Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile. And you will see in how they've managed, I don't want to say judicialization, but you'll see on one hand how previous experience in running adverse proceedings has helped expedite the proceedings, how quickly they decide on motions. But at the same time, we don't know whether that has in any way disadvantaged those who are senator judges without similar experience. So apart from quantum of proof, and again, I think there really isn't one that we can impose. We should look at the role of the presiding judge and also the manner by which the rules for the trial will be crafted by the Senate.
I think ultimately as well, if we go by the language of the Corona and Estrada impeachments, there was a lot of language pertaining to conscience, whether the conscience of the senator judges would be satisfied by the vote they would or would have ended up taking. We have just a few minutes for the very last question for this panel, which is very timely in light of events in just the last week when we planned this impeachment forum. There was no case filed yet with the Supreme Court, and now we have two. Right? So if a case is brought to raise these questions, may the Supreme Court step in. And I think, for our audience who may not be lawyers or law students, there's a question between, or there's a difference rather between whether the court can step in and whether the court should step in. May kapangyarihan ba siya o dapat ba siya manghimasok doon sa issue na iyon? So your thoughts on this, Commissioner Sarmiento?
To address the last question. As of today, the Senate has not been constituted as an impeachment court. So not yet the sole power to try and decide this case. So if addressed that question, may the Supreme Court step in. Now, there is this provision, forthwith proceed. That's why a petition has been filed by a lawyer for the Senate to observe, to follow this command, forthwith proceed. So up to this point, it is not yet an impeachment court. It's not a political question. I think the constitutional duty has to be addressed by the Supreme Court. Now, on the issue of the second petition that was filed with the Supreme Court yesterday, questioning the whole process that was followed in the House of Representatives. Again, there is a provision in the Constitution that has to be followed. I think the Supreme Court can step in and come in and resolve this petition.
Thank you, Commissioner Sarmiento. Senate President Drilon.
The basic rule is found in the Constitution. The impeachment court shall decide all impeachment cases. Questions of jurisdiction, therefore, should be decided by, according to the Constitution, by the impeachment court. To me, the better attitude that the Supreme Court can follow is not to interfere. Let this be treated as a political question and therefore leave it to the judgment of the Senate asking or acting as an impeachment court to decide on this, including questions of jurisdiction. So it's best that the Supreme Court does not interfere.
Justice Carpio Morales, I know that there might be a discomfort in light of the Francisco ruling.
Under the expanded jurisdiction of the Supreme Court can take jurisdiction in actual cases, actual controversy that involves the rights, demandable rights of people, and when there is abuse of or grave abuse of discretion. So for as long as the question is not political, but there is abuse of discretion, grave abuse of discretion on the part of the respondent, and or there's an actual controversy that involves demandable rights, the Supreme Court can step in. Thank you.
In other words, the decision of the impeachment court can be appealed to the Supreme Court?
Why? Are you sure there was abuse of discretion?
Ano?
Well, just my point, Chit, is that under the Constitution, the Senate shall have the sole power to try and decide all cases of impeachment.
Precisely.
This is precisely a clear rule that the Supreme Court should leave the Senate alone.
Precisely, I subsume my answer in that there is, under the expanded jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, as afforded by the 1987 Constitution, the court comes in if there is an actual case and it involves demandable rights and or there's grave abuse of discretion. If the impeachment court gravely abused its discretion, why should it not step in?
Yan. Kaya kayo, eto na. So, abang-abang kayo sa ating mga dinalabas na video ha. Lagi po tayo may upload everyday. At i-share nyo po yung video. Like, at share. O, eto na ha. Hanggang sa muli. Bye-bye.